Facing debilitating OCD and anxiety at 20, I've isolated and fought through the shadows. I can't remember the last time I allowed anyone to touch me, I lament. Yet, as I scroll Bumble looking for friends, a spark of hope flickers. Will I ever break free? I am a 20-year-old man. This evening I feel insufferably lonely. For more than half of my life, I have struggled with debilitating mental health issues, primarily anxiety disorders. I was first hospitalized at the age of 10 when my anxiety became so intense that I began hallucinating and experiencing daily panic attacks. Since that initial breakdown, I have never truly recovered. My education was disrupted immediately due to a complete inability to attend school. Even the word school would launch me into an inconsolable state at that time. This was partly due to some social difficulties, and partly because any perceived academic pressure felt like an overwhelming flood to my already burdened mind. I was supposed to be a bright child, so the school apparently overlooked the signs of my struggles to focus on my academic potential instead. I have had a very fluctuating, non-committal, stop-start education since that first separation from school 10 years ago. Some years I have been able to engage in education, while in others I have been incapable of managing it, even with modified hours to help accommodate my challenges with attending while grappling with crippling anxiety. At 17, I became unwaveringly determined to change my situation, earn my qualifications, and eventually study medicine. I was captivated by this ambition, completely illuminated by it from within, after attending an event at which several doctors spoke extensively and answered questions about their profession. However, a year later, the sudden end of an extremely close friendship I had at that time, along with other complex personal stressors, plunged me into private turmoil that insidiously built up beneath the surface and ultimately led to another horrifying psychotic episode, for which I was nearly hospitalized again. Now I cannot even consider resuming my studies without feeling nauseated and as though a knife is lodged in my throat. The connection has formed in my mind repeatedly, and something within me cannot separate the concepts of studying or working from nothing but suffering. I have become so disillusioned with my circumstances that I have been browsing Bumble BFF tonight in search of a potential friend because I do not communicate with anyone my age. What stands out to me about the young men I encounter online is that, predictably, they all have some educational background or job to reference, whereas I, by contrast, must appear laughable on paper. Much of people's identities and their conversations, understandably, revolve around their activities. I fear that I may be automatically dismissed as inferior and a wasted investment of time because I have nothing tangible to contribute to a friendship. Essentially, I do very little with my life. The thing is that I love life in theory. I love the idea of life. There are many things that I could be doing. One of my favorite things in the world is music, and singing or performing is perhaps the most beautiful and cathartic experience imaginable to me, almost transcendently powerful. The very evident, though often undesirable, path for me in life would be as a musician, which has been recognized in me from a very young age. I used to play the bass and sing. I am unsure why I have always felt so averse to the idea of pursuing music professionally. I am passionate about traveling, foreign languages, and foreign cultures. I adore food, and cooking is something I have long wanted to explore. The outdoors, nature, and fitness greatly appeal to me, among other interests. I know that there is much potential within me, many good qualities, and I believe that I would have a lot, at least theoretically, to contribute to a friendship or even a romantic relationship. If I am grateful for anything about this year of continuous solitude, it is that it has brought me deeply in touch with myself, and I am often profoundly appreciative of my immediate surroundings, fostering an immensely newfound love for myself. However, when it comes to engaging in even the most basic conversations about daily life, I struggle, and I genuinely do not feel capable of truly participating in any of the activities I would be capable of doing without significant effort. I feel too stifled by my obsessive-compulsive disorder. I imagine that spending time with me would be quite dull, as I do almost nothing with my time and lack the ability to drive, thus making it more challenging to get around easily where I live. I do not know how I could contribute to outings, particularly when my discomfort may be palpable in ordinary situations where I perceive a contamination threat. It instantly kills the good mood, I find. Relationships require both giving and taking, but I sometimes fear that my role in a relationship amounts to little more than taking at this moment, and I do not want to be a burden to anyone. I ceased communicating with nearly everyone last year, except for a few individuals. My life rapidly devolved into nearly total self-isolation and solitude. I was diagnosed with severe obsessive-compulsive disorder, specifically contamination OCD, which continues to dominate and dictate much of my life. It is horrendous, brutal, and deeply disconnecting. I cannot recall the last time I allowed another person to touch or hug me without hesitation and overwhelming fear. My sole distraction from the OCD last year was rediscovering a childhood passion for writing. I began recollecting the details of a novel I had dedicated 2 years to imagining as a side project since I was 16. Over 6 months, I documented this monumental novel in note form for one of the very few individuals I have kept in my life recently. That person was as enthusiastic and invested in the project as I was, and my unwavering focus made life infinitely more bearable amid my contamination anxieties. Everything pivoted around the book and the passion it instilled in me. I have sometimes thought that if I could do just one tangible thing before I pass away, it would be to write and publish that novel. However, I am currently experiencing writer's block, which I attribute to my sense of loneliness and the lack of variety and stimulation in my life. I have very few hobbies to turn to these days because writing, once my passion, my life, and my essence now feels frustratingly out of reach. I find myself floating, untethered, wondering what to do with myself now that my sense of purpose appears to be lost as well, especially since attempts at other productive activities feel laughably unmanageable. The challenge is that the story was conceptualized and developed alongside my aforementioned very close friend, who I lost at the age of 18. I decided to share our novel with someone else, in no small part, to seek some closure regarding the ended relationship. I initially intended to speak of the book one last time after recounting its story. Yet without it feeling somehow inaccessible to me, something within me seems to want the writer's block to serve as a barricade against the now painful memories of creating the story with the friend I once cherished. Without that vital outlet of writing, I feel particularly directionless and lost. Journaling can only take me so far when the monotony of my thoughts in relative isolation becomes painfully evident. Nothing new emerges because I observe nothing new and engage in no new experiences. To write a convincing story properly, in a way that is eloquent, believable, and publishable, I feel that I need more life experience. I need to get out and see more of the world, but how can I do that when I fear the world only has to offer me fear, destruction, and pain? I am genuinely beginning to lose hope that I will ever break the cycle that has dominated my life for the past 10 years, attempting vainly to invigorate myself and persuade myself that everything is fine while piling heaps of pressure on myself to engage with the world around me. Then, I crash and burn, and my mental health declines. I would like to break this cycle, but I am terrified it is uninterruptible and endless, that if I attempt to carve out some semblance of a life for myself beyond this point, something terrible will occur, and I will be forced back into a state of submission before the pains afflicting this world in my own mind. Every stranger I encounter, every rare occasion I leave the house causes me to tense up, and my survival instincts kick in as if they are automatically primed to harm me. Conversely, I feel that my mental health challenges are entirely at odds with my true self. I possess a desire for human interaction that is nearly insatiable, and I feel more extroverted than introverted, despite often remaining in stasis. Even the slightest human interaction these days invigorates me immeasurably, providing a medicinal boost that significantly lifts my mental state. Until I suddenly remember how deeply I distrust people, and a loathsome grayness settles within me, corrupting the bright, enriched energy that the initial interaction provided. I feel as though I have endured one too many beatings from life, and my only option moving forward is to retreat perpetually because I am physically incapable of withstanding another crash. That is what it ultimately comes down to. I cannot face another crash. My state of being often feels almost translucent. I spend nearly all my time consoling myself internally over some intangible, indefinable, yet inevitable loss of self. Beneath the surface, lurking behind every fleeting happiness, my internal landscape endlessly oscillates between seizing, suffocating fear and sharp, choking anger. I feel like I am slowly slipping away, partially dissociated from reality at all times, barely engaged as I navigate my days. I fear a death that is not literal, corporeal death, more like a death of parts of the self that occurs when one invests in relationships, only for them to go awry, taking with them your emotional investment and affection upon their departure. The kind of death that happens when you emerge from a cocoon of self-isolation and must blend in and adapt to the world surrounding you, with this adjustment inevitably requiring some degree of self-sacrifice. The irony is that I am already functionally dead to the outside world, except for a semblance of aliveness in the eyes of a limited few, and I worry that this cycle will persist until I leave this earth. I fear that this is truly all that lies ahead for me. I am concerned that I will never contribute to life or find a way to pick myself back up. I have long assumed that because I have been fortunate enough to have a family who loves me greatly and have instilled in me a foundational belief in my own strengths, some core resilience and zest for life would eventually emerge and refuse to be confined any longer, motivating me to elevate myself above my current situation, to brave the pain and embark on the journey toward discovering what a good, fulfilling life could resemble for me. Yet I worry that this spontaneous emergence of strength will not materialize. I will either have to act in its absence, forging and awakening it with my own effort, or I will have to acquiesce and spend the remainder of my life remaining mostly to myself, accepting that I am fully vulnerable and such strength does not exist. I am acutely aware that even a few years ago, I was capable of experiencing a much more profound and varied spectrum of emotions, and I am retreating into a comparative husk of nothing but inescapable doubt and anxiety. That is the trajectory I am on if I do not address this. Limitations seem now to be all that I know. This reality does not feel as though it should be the case. I always assumed, somewhere deep within, that this struggle would ultimately be temporary. What if it simply is not? It cannot be overstated how significantly my poor mental health has influenced my life. This year, prioritizing myself to such an extent has fostered a greater appreciation for what I do have both inside and around me, as I have mentioned. However, I still feel like I am operating on a very fragile baseline of mere functionality. It feels as though even the lightest touch of pressure, a single minor event, could send me spiraling into utter despair. I cannot return to that state. I have endured overwhelming darkness and profound emotional pain. I wish to safeguard what remains within me, the fortitude in life that I still possess, without jeopardizing it entirely, without endangering my heart, my mind, or the precious semblance of peace that I have worked tirelessly to create over the past year. With the extent of my ongoing anxiety, I hardly know the sensation of safety at all, despite the reality that I am remarkably supported and safe. I often find myself content with my own company, yet recently I have yearned for so much more. It is worth noting that I have a very strong support network and I am not alone, for which I am profoundly grateful. Nevertheless, I still feel this increasing sense of loneliness and unfulfillment. I desire friends, I genuinely do. I am eager to share myself with others. I attempted to cultivate online friendships for several years during my youth, but did not connect with it at all. I overwhelmingly prefer in-person interactions, which are challenging to develop when leaving the house is, in itself, a hurdle. Moreover, my young age offers little consolation or hope regarding the idea that I still have plenty of time to figure out my life. I do not feel as though I have time. I experience a kind of foreshortening when attempting to envision my future. I sense, albeit without logic or justification, that I will likely die young. Something, perhaps just general dread, gives me the impression that my time on this planet is limited. Even more reason to work towards crafting a plan for more, right? Perhaps, but what am I supposed to do with all of the disjointed fragments of myself that are not coherently unifiable? How am I to envision a life outside of my very small, insular existence when I possess such dreadful trust issues? There are a million different directions I could take, but how do I discern where to begin while carrying the emotional burdens that I feel I constantly bear? I am attempting and hoping to rebuild my life in small, gradual steps, determined to avoid crashing this time if it can be prevented. I contacted a driving instructor the other day so that I can at least have the option to freely go places if that is something I wish to pursue. The fact that I was even fumbling through Bumble in search of a friend likely indicates progress. The fact that I am frustrated also probably reflects positive movement. Yet I do not know how or if I will ever overcome my mental health issues. All of this arises from looking at potential friends on an app and realizing how separate I feel from them and how behind I feel in life. Written down, this may sound whinier and lazier than it resonates in my mind, but it is beneficial to articulate some of this for the first time in a while. I am in therapy, as I have been for many years, and I strive to take good care of myself physically. I wonder if things will ever improve. Does anxiety, depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, etc. ever cease to be such a hindrance, even though in my case it is managed and supported extensively? I long to feel capable of dreaming and living a little more than I currently do. Story 2. After sending a brutal letter to my estranged father, I woke up to him screaming at my mom about it. "Why'd you write the letter?" When I calmly told him it was how I felt, he snarled, "Do you want me to beg you for a car?" Uninvited to graduation, he's still delusional. What will he do next? For context, I am an 18-year-old female who sent letters and graduation invitations to several family members and friends about 1 or 2 weeks ago. The letters expressed my love for them and my desire for them to attend my graduation. Typical sentiments, right? My mother suggested that I write to my father, who has not been part of my life at all. To provide some background, my father, who is a 50-year-old male, went to prison in 2011 when I was around 3 years old. He was incarcerated for assaulting my mother, assaulting a neighbor, endangering a peace officer, and 2 felony counts of child endangerment. Ultimately, the attempted murder charge was dropped because the charge of endangering a peace officer carried a longer sentence, I suppose. I am sure there were other charges such as assault, but I cannot recall every detail off the top of my head. Suffice it to say, he is not a good person. He was released from prison in 2016, and my mother established a protective order, so we did not hear from him for a while. In 2018 or perhaps 2019, he contacted both my mother and me, and my brother and I saw him a few times. As a child, I was extremely anxious about being anywhere without my mother, and honestly, I still am. The moment my mother stopped attending the visits, I did as well, which seemed to frustrate my father, whom we will refer to as Steve, a pseudonym. He only saw my brother 3 more times after I stopped going before completely disappearing from our lives. The last time I saw him was during Christmas 2019. I have been told the story of what transpired the day he lost control, but I will not delve into many details, as I fear that some resourceful individuals might track me down. To summarize, he became angry at my mother when my older sister, who was 17 at the time, called to ask for her cell phone charger that she had forgotten before going to work. Obviously, alcohol was involved, as it is not normal behavior to become enraged over a phone charger. Additionally, he had been having issues with my sister regarding her smoking marijuana, but still. At the time, Steve was drinking with a neighbor friend, whom we will refer to as Mike. In his anger, he began to push and hit my mother, prompting Mike to intervene, which led to Mike getting injured. Both my mother and Mike went outside, and Mike called the police while my mother instructed my sister not to come home after work and to stay with a friend. When my mother returned home, the police were arriving in our neighborhood right behind her, so she went inside to protect me, who was 3 years old, and my brother, who was 1 year old. Steve then opened fire on the police, hitting several vehicles, shattering our front door, and leaving bullet holes in the house across the street. Eventually, he was calmed down by a different neighbor and taken into custody. At some point, he confessed that he had planned to kill my mother, Mike, and himself that night, which is why he had 3 loaded guns ready. Now you understand why I have a strong dislike for this man. Returning to the main point, I sent my father a letter. It was certainly not a kind letter, but I did not feel it necessary to be kind. Here are some key points I recall from the letter. I am not ashamed that he is my father. I have openly discussed his actions and how they impacted my family with every friend I have had since elementary school. I have shared excruciating details and even pulled up his mugshot to laugh at with close friends. Growing up, I never knew what it was like to have a dad, so I never felt excluded. I did not resent other children because I had my mother, who was doing everything she could for me, my brother, herself, and my sister. I expressed my love for my mother and my gratitude that she never allowed him to affect her. I do not want his money. My mother suggested asking him for money to buy a car since I do not have one. She mentioned it could make up for all the birthdays and Christmases he had missed over the years. In the letter, I conveyed that she suggested this, but I also included a line that I thought was quite impactful. Missed holidays would suggest you tried, Steve, but you did not. They were forgotten birthdays and Christmases because you were not there, you never were, and you did not even attempt to be. I expressed my hatred for him several times throughout the letter. I stated that if he were to show up at my graduation, even uninvited, there would not be enough seats available because the 8 seats I have been given are reserved for my true family, who genuinely love and care about me. He would have to sit in a separate room provided by the venue to watch a live stream along with other families who could not secure enough seats. I queried how he could have gotten remarried, wondering how a woman could love someone with his history so much that she would want to spend her life with him. I pointed out that even though I did not want or need a father, my brother desperately wanted one, and I told him he was a terrible person for denying my brother that opportunity. To conclude my letter, I expressed my hope that his time in prison was miserable and that it haunts him every day. I wished for him to know that when he lies on his deathbed, he will be aware that even his children, whom he tried so hard for, do not love or care about him. I signed the letter with my name, but I have been going by my middle name as my last name for about a year now. I used to dislike this because my father and I share the same middle name, just spelled differently to make mine sound more feminine. Therefore, I signed it with my chosen name, which I will refer to as Lexi Ray, not my real name, of course, and beneath it I wrote Ray is my name, not yours, which now seems somewhat cringeworthy, but in the moment it felt incredibly empowering. Now on to what happened today. I typically wake up around 10 o'clock because I graduated from high school early back in January, and I have been taking it easy while waiting for college to start in the fall. However, I woke up earlier than usual due to construction noise, so I closed my window and went to say hello to my mother. I found her screaming on the phone. I stood there like a child in the archway of our kitchen, watching her shout into the phone. She turned to me and asked, "Oh, do you want to talk to your dad?" This man called my mother at approximately 6 in the morning, demanding to speak with me. Understandably, she did not comply as it was early, and she did not want to awaken me with an angry phone call from a man I have not spoken to in about 6 years. When the phone was put on speaker, he shouted, "Why did you write the letter?" I was irritated from the beginning. I do not appreciate people yelling at me, especially if I do not know them, and it genuinely upsets me. The only way I have learned to manage my feelings without yelling back is to respond in the most disinterested manner possible. So I replied because I was sending out graduation invitations. He apparently did not like that response as he kept repeating, "Why did you write the letter?" over and over again, and I provided him with different answers each time, because I wanted to. Eventually, my mother whispered in my ear to tell him it was how I felt. Perhaps she was tired of his incessant repetition or knew it would silence him. He seemed to accept that explanation, I think. He launched into a monologue about how it hurt his feelings and how he had not been able to sleep because of my letter. But honestly, my friend who still lives in the area has not yet received her letter, which I sent on the same day I sent his, and he lives out of state, so I doubt it has truly caused him sleepless nights. He probably received it yesterday or something and is just being dramatic. Then his tone shifted and he asked condescendingly if I had a car. I replied truthfully, "No, I do not," to which he retorted, "Oh, that sucks." I said, "Uh-huh, what, do you want me to beg you on my hands and knees for a car?" This man lives in a pre-built house on his father's land. He is basically living in his dad's backyard and trying to make me feel bad for not having a vehicle. I apologize to everyone who lives in a pre-built house on their father's land. I did not mean to make fun of you, just him. He wanted to speak with my mother again, so I stepped away, but he was still on speaker. As soon as I walked away, he inquired whether he could remove me from his insurance since I am now an adult. What the heck, bro? He was also utterly shocked to learn that my mother has insurance and that I did not need to be on his. His follow-up question, could I take my nearly 16-year-old brother off too? Boy, just admit you hate us and are financially struggling. I do not care. Steve also mentioned that he would attend my graduation, even though I made it clear in my letter that it was not an invitation. Someone clearly did not read the letter. My mother told him directly that he was not allowed to come because he would ruin the event. He suggested sending me money, saying, "Make sure it actually goes to her," implying that my mother might steal the money. Brother, your child support is divided into two separate accounts, one for me and one for my brother. My hardworking mother is not stealing your child support, which only comes every couple of months or whenever you feel like it. Good grief. He tried to claim that the reason he has not seen us is due to the restraining order, which we do not even have. We had a protective order that expired when I was 11, and even then I am pretty sure that it did not matter since my mother allowed us to see him. After he hung up, my mother went through all the court documents and prison records she had kept just in case. Consequently, I got to read every single responding officer's incident report from that night. I also reviewed witness statements and letters he sent to my mother, all repeating the same thing. "I love you, I miss you, I hope you and the kids forgive me. I miss my wife, my love, my best friend. Please do not divorce me. I love you and I know you love me and will forgive me. We can recover from this." I also read the letters he wrote to me from prison, but I did not read the ones addressed to my brother as that is not my concern. I am apprehensive about what they may contain. My father has harbored the belief for the longest time and likely still does that my mother cheated on him with Mike and that my brother is Mike's child. However, my brother and I have always looked identical, and Steve used to say how much I resembled him. So if I look like him and my brother looks like me, how can my brother be another man's child? He claimed he would call back later, so I suppose we will wait for that. I just needed to express my feelings since my only friend is currently at school and I cannot talk to her until she gets out. I have felt nauseous all morning due to reading the incident reports and associated documents. I feel like I might vomit. Please do not attempt to discover who Steve truly is or who I really am. I just needed to write this down and release it from my system. I also apologize for the poor writing, as I am not particularly skilled at articulating my thoughts in writing. Story 3. Betrayed on New Year's Eve when I was thousands of miles away, she kissed another guy and then moaned my name in bed with him on my birthday. After her shocking betrayal, she had the audacity to ask, "Maybe I need therapy? How do I recover from this?" I never thought I would be writing this, but I need to express my feelings. I was in a 4-year relationship with a woman I once admired, not for her appearance, which to be honest did not initially attract me, but for the connection I believed we shared, for the promises she made, and for the future we envisioned together. I gradually fell for her, convinced that what we were creating was genuine. When I gave her my heart, I never anticipated that she would shatter it so mercilessly. We met, fell for each other, and during the first year of our relationship, we cohabited. I was preparing to leave for my master's degree abroad, but I made it clear from the very beginning that I was not seeking something casual. I was committed to a long-term relationship and was ready to put in the effort for a long-distance partnership. She agreed. The only thing she ever requested of me was to visit her frequently. I understood that it was a reasonable request, given that we had once lived together. However, my reality was challenging. I was pursuing a highly demanding degree abroad, balancing a rigorous student workload with a part-time research job while managing the challenges of living as an expatriate. Despite everything, I did visit her as often as I could, but it was never sufficient for her. She never acknowledged or appreciated the effort I made. It was as if no matter how much I did, she had already decided it was inadequate. I had to make choices. I was building my future not just for myself but for us. I wanted to be independent, to be in a position where I could respectfully meet her parents and where we could have a good life together. She should have understood this. She was a student too, a medical student. She understood the demands and sacrifices that had to be made. But instead of recognizing my efforts, instead of supporting me, she chose herself and eventually chose someone else. The timing of it all adds to the pain. This betrayal occurred on New Year's Eve. I was alone in a foreign country, waiting for her to call me so we could celebrate in whatever way we could from a distance. I had consciously decided not to make plans with friends here as I wanted to prioritize the relationship. I did not want to engage in anything without her. And what did she do? She kissed another guy that night. That was not a mistake, that was not a moment of weakness, that was a deliberate choice. When I confronted her about our breakup due to her treachery, her immediate reaction was to suggest we open the relationship. The extent to which this person attempted to evade accountability is truly baffling to me. Then, just a few days before my birthday, she slept with the same guy. That was my birthday gift from her, the revelation that she had given her body to another man. The very body she once claimed was only for me, the body about which she had made sacred promises. She did not only make these promises verbally. She had taken me to our temples, locations that our families regard as sacred, and made commitments about our future. She involved both our families in our relationship. Her family accepted me, they were aware of me, and expected to meet me as a potential future husband. She solidified her commitment to me by giving me her grandmother's ring, a family heirloom, as a promise ring. This was not just any piece of jewelry. This was a symbol of our future, a representation of trust and loyalty, something that carried the weight of generations in her family. Yet, despite all of that, she still chose to betray me in the most humiliating way imaginable. Initially, she only admitted to kissing the guy. The following morning, she called me, crying, acting bewildered, and scarcely acknowledging what she had done. When I ended the relationship, she did not attempt to repair things. Instead, she went ahead and slept with him. Here's the kicker. While she was in bed with him, she moaned my name, and she confessed this to me on my birthday. She was openly betraying me, yet her thoughts remained on me. If that is not evidence of how lost, confused, and troubled she was, I don't know what is. And then, after all that, after betraying me in the most degrading manner, she suddenly had a realization. Maybe she was not over her ex-boyfriend yet. So she came back, suggesting couples therapy. Not out of a genuine desire to mend what was broken, but because she needed to alleviate her guilt. She required a way to convince herself that she was not the villain in this narrative. As for her friends, they blindly defended her. None of them told her she was wrong. None of them held her accountable. Instead, they directed their focus at me, claiming that labeling her actions as promiscuous was inappropriate, completely ignoring the actual betrayal she committed. Her own parents hardly reacted. Her father merely stated, "Good guys are rare to come by." Her mother, no real response. She faced zero consequences from the people around her. Meanwhile, I was the one left devastated, humiliated, trying to understand how the person I loved could do this to me. And then there is the ultimate irony. This is a woman who wept over a fictional dog dying in A Dog's Purpose years ago. However, when my real-life dog, the one who saved me, the one I loved more than anything, passed away, she displayed no empathy. Her only response: "I work in a morgue, I see death every day, it doesn't affect me anymore." And then she went out partying almost every day that week, while I mourned my dog's passing. She never genuinely cared about my pain, she was never truly there for me. During the last 6 months of our relationship, I felt isolated, alone, and emotionally neglected. In retrospect, I realized that it was because she had already emotionally departed. But here is what makes all of this even worse. I was already grappling with severe depression when she did this to me. My mental health had taken a substantial blow. I had confided in her about this. I had been honest about my struggles, and she, being a doctor, should have possessed at least some basic human compassion. But she did not. She was cold, distant, and unavailable. She opted to betray me instead of being there for me when I needed her most. I had even offered her an escape. Long before my dog passed away, when my depression was worsening, I told her that if she felt unable to cope with being with someone going through this, I would understand. I would not judge her if she walked away. I shared this with her multiple times. Yet she chose to stay, not necessarily to support me or to make any effort at all to be present. She just stayed, until she found someone else to sleep with. I do not really understand why I allowed this to happen to me. I am unsure if people like her ever find happiness. Part of me wishes her healing and peace because I aspire to be the bigger person. However, another part of me, the hurt, raw, betrayed aspect, wants her to suffer, to feel just a fraction of the pain she has inflicted on me. to realize too late that she squandered something real. I am writing this because I need to release these feelings. If anyone has ever experienced something similar, I need to know, how do you move past a betrayal like this? How do you reclaim your self-worth when someone you trusted entirely trampled it? Because right now, it feels as though I will never be able to view love in the same light again. Summary: I am coping with clinical depression, the loss of a family member, and a cheating partner simultaneously. I need advice on how to regain my self-esteem and get my life back on track.